Welcome everybody, an open door for all old and new. We are gonna jump right back into doing developer diaries because it's been a couple of weeks since I've done the last one. You know, I had my anniversary week and well, weeks, because just a bunch of stuff kept going wrong and work, and just I'm probably gonna have a separate developer diary on that stuff at some point. But you know, it's been a couple of weeks since I put out that gameplay video that I did with Riddick on Dark Messiah, so I think it would be a good time to go in there and address everything that was going on. You know, sort of understanding the things that we learned from that gameplay session, and even what the next steps will be with the information we gathered from there. Because yes, although it was a lot of fun and it was a good time, it was there for a practical purpose. We needed to figure out what was going on so that I could fix it. And you know, I got a lot of information, so I'm gonna go through that. People said maybe make the video a little longer and a little more technical, not too technical, but just a little more technical than I usually do. So I'm gonna be testing out those things and seeing, well, you guys can let me know if the descriptions and such are better than what they were before, because we got access to those polls and stuff like that. So again, thank you to everybody that's subscribing, commenting, supporting, etc. I've been utilizing that as much as I can to have a direct avenue with you guys, be able to communicate. I'm still available on the Discord and stuff for messaging, but having it just go through YouTube immediately is also good, because not everybody wants to use Discord, not everybody wants to go on Knockout, let's say, or ModDB. So you know, this is just really good, and I'm hoping that I can actually produce this in such a way that is good to hear, because really you're just here to listen to stuff. Looking at me playing gameplay stuff of games is just not, you know, that's not the reason this is here. I'm not a streamer. So yeah, alright, that aside, let me begin talking about these issues, and we'll see how we go, right? So the first and absolutely obvious one is the fact that there was a crash when the map changed in the, I guess, Necromancer cave. I'm gonna call it that just for the sake of it. I know it has an actual name, but we're just gonna go with that for now. So the maps crashing on change is something that actually caught me by surprise. You can actually hear it in the video. I was completely dumbfounded because we had tested this before. We had went through maps, changing through, being able to play, and it didn't crash the game. And we even had more players. It wasn't just Riddick and I. We had the old session, I don't even know how long ago anymore, but there was at least maybe 6 or 7 of us, and it didn't crash at all. So I was trying to think, well, why could this be happening now? And the console error said something about not being able to find the correct server class for the player. Now, I know what the server class is. It's essentially like the back-end class of an entity. You know, you have C-base entity, that is the class in the actual, you know, code. But then you would have, let's say, base entity or some other thing which would derive off C-base entity, and that would be like the in-game class. And the server class is required to get that information out so that when it spawns itself, when it tries to gather the functions, it gets inputs, all sorts of things like that, you know exactly where you're supposed to be going, because, well, how the hell are you going to know what you're supposed to be doing with it, right? So for it to have issues finding server class is weird to me, because it's like, it clearly has that. It must. I'm the player. You know, you play through a single player game and it must be there. So looking at it, I was thinking, well, let's think. I'm not in the map change. Riddick's in the map change. Usually I would be the one in the map change. Because at first I was thinking I must have broken something, since, again, I always say I'm basically experimenting with fixes and then picking which one works best, but I don't really know the repercussions of doing some of these things until later on. But with that analysis, I was looking at it and I'm like, well, of course, okay, this makes sense. It doesn't crash when I went through, which I was always doing. I was the one going through, because back then, triggers would only work for the first player in the server, and being that it's my server, it would be me. But since I've patched that, since I've extended the functions to multiple players and stuff like that recently and fixed all that, you know, especially with the ropes and stuff, it actually tried to, I assume, recreate an entity that didn't exist, parentheses, the player, and then it would just crash the game, because it's like, well, we can't make this. This doesn't actually work like that. And it actually makes perfect sense when you think about it, because the way that the Source Engine sort of handles map changes in single player games is that it has like a safe box, and it collects information from that box about the stuff that's in it. Say you want to take a barrel from one level to another, it gets that information and puts it there. Now if the barrel doesn't exist in the new level, well, it has to make it, right? Naturally, you walk into a room, you may not have the barrel, but then you go later in the level, grab the barrel and throw it right back in. You're gonna need to make a new one. So that's how that works. And it also does some state magic and stuff like that, with like, you know, if you turn off the force field in one place and whatever, blah blah blah. But that's a Hammer thing, you know, that's the map editor stuff. We're not gonna look at that right now. But yeah, that is what I believe is happening. The fix is actually extremely easy. All I need to do is store the data from the entity, like shift error. I'm trying to figure out the right word to use it. But basically, it's like a table that it collects, and it then, when the map loads, it tries to apply it. Basically, just stop the application and then wait for the player to actually get in, the second player or whatever, or the first player. And then once they're in, put that stuff right on them. Because actually, the entities for like inventory and, for example, inputs, like if you can turn into your demon form, how much gold or skill points you have, some stuff like that is actually stored in an entity called Player Inputs. Actually, now that I think about it, the skill points probably are not stored in Player Inputs, but there are functions that are called by it. So that actually, you know, the point is more so that Dark Messiah seems like it's been designed to transfer that information in an easy way, given that they're stored in entities. So the only point that is a problem is the actual player itself. Once the player gets in, we just give him back all the entities. We remove the ones that were spawned by it, or at least transfer the information, because we can do that given we have the tables for it. And that's it. It would work like a charm. And that is the optimistic look of it. Obviously, more problems may arise from that, but we won't know until we do it. So that's what I'm going to be implementing first and foremost, because that is actually a gameplay blocking thing, and it's just, yeah, it needs to go, especially that it was working before. So that's that one. Now we're gonna move on to the next problem. This one is a little different, and it's noticeable but not quite noticeable. It depends how you're looking at it. So Riddick and I, we don't live next to each other. You know, this is a long distance network that's going on here for us to be able to play this. And you can hear Riddick sort of talk about stuttering or things like that, and it may look normal on my screen, but there are points where you'll see him sort of jitter around and stuff like that. And I'm not particularly sure why that's happening. It could be lag compensation, it could be prediction just not working on the client properly, which would make sense because prediction is not something that inherently works on the client side of things that are single player. There's no reason to predict anything. And now allow me to explain what prediction is. Essentially, prediction is what allows you to sort of guess where you are going to be, right? You're predicting where you're going to be based on the information that you have, and it allows you, as the person playing the game, to not really see any lag. You get to walk around. Even if the server hasn't really calculated it or confirmed it yet, you get to still move around and it looks good. And then you tell the server, well, I think I'm in this position. And the server says, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. And if you aren't, it moves you back. If you are, it keeps you there because good job. And that actually helps sponge the lag a lot. I like to talk about it like when you're rubber banding, right? In a game, we've all been there. You're running around, you think you see a guy, and then suddenly you start jittering back, you jolt backwards. It's because your client, your PC, has told you that you're supposed to be over there, but the server hit that hard brake and just slingshot you right back. And again, this is something that just doesn't really exist in a single player game, so it would make sense that it wouldn't be in Dark Messiah, especially because it's an earlier version of the engine, so it might not be 100% standard yet to be put in there. I remember when I had to do the view model stuff, I actually needed to incorporate my own prediction in it so that it wouldn't be, spazzing out, jittering around. And that is just something that unfortunately may need to be done again for the player and will be a more complicated effort down the line, but it's actually crucial to making sure that everybody has a good gameplay thing. Because the alternative is to just make it completely client authoritative, which is essentially, well, if the client says he's over there, he's over there. And that may not be that bad for a, co-op game. Typically, you never want to do this. You never trust the client. That's the rules of networking. Never trust what these people tell you. They always want to cheat their way into it, right? So you design your systems around that. And again, that is not so much a problem in a co-op game because you're screwing over who? The AI. Like, what the hell is that? What are they going to think about it? Nothing. So you can work around that. That may be a small band-aid fix, but it's not one that I personally, as a coder, I never like to implement this. So that is something that I will be moving past, trying to figure out a better way. So that is the second thing that was learned from there. And the final thing, okay, actually has to do with our rope friend, and I believe also has a little bit to do with the prediction engine, or not prediction engine, but the sort of networking syncing that's happening when the server is telling the client something. So the way that the rope fixes were implemented is that we made the assumption that the position that the player is in on the server will always be networked to the client. Absolutely correct. If I press my up button, right, I'm going to be going up. I'm going to be going up on the rope, so it's just going to say, hey, you're going up. And then my client will be like, oh yeah, I'm going up. But because this is information that is networked through players, right, and it's not client authoritative, then it means that if I don't know that I'm already on the rope, I may have issues with that up statement. If I go up, my server will tell me I'm going up on a rope, but my client, it may think that I'm jittering forward. It may think that I'm running forward even though I'm on a rope. So what ends up happening is you'll see the camera sort of disconnect from the player model a little bit. It'll move outward. Even though I'm still going up, it'll feel on the actual camera that I'm completely in a different place. And another thing you'll notice is that when the rope swings, because it does often, this updating of the position is actually, I don't know, it just is really bad for the for the client side, because this movement is completely undocumented on the client side. It's all server side. Usually this movement would be linked up with the entity directly, but because there's some weird sort of fix going on, it causes the movement to be, unknown to the client. And that's something that I have to do and have to implement myself, which I'm not really too stressed about now that I have better methods of doing this. The rope fix was a way to get us moving forward, fix some crucial things, and although it isn't that bad, it is bad enough when you actually have things going on, and especially when you're not the host. And that, again, this comes down to that networking principle where you don't really have too much prediction. There's pieces of it that are clearly predicted, but you don't, not everything is predicted, and then you get those jitters, you get those things, that the movement code is different, all sorts of stuff like that. So that is something that needs to be handled, and I'm gonna do a second pass of that. That's something that I will look at. But you see that all these things sort of go hand in hand. As soon as you discover one sort of problem, you are sort of on the right track to find the next issue in that realm, and that's the whole process behind it. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that was a major problem during our gameplay. You had the obvious stuff, like sometimes a cutscene would only play for one person. Zana was talking to me, and Riddick didn't always hear it. Sometimes it sounded like Sareth was talking to himself, which is actually kind of a neat thing to think about. But, we want to try and at least share the experience through. And I remember that when we were playing certain maps, the NPC movement got a bit laggy. It's not so much that the NPC itself was having problems. I believe that this was because the NPCs weren't being interpolated. which is, you know, by definition of the word, it's just that stepping between two positions so that it moves smoothly, so that you don't really see those jitters and stuff. Same thing with the animations. But it's something that is also, I believe for that issue, it's just a console command. I just need to actually set it so that that console command is always active when you're playing the co-op component of the game. Because actually that is something that also will need to be discovered. It's about finding the optimal settings, you know, for hosting the multiplayer server so everybody still has a good time and everything still looks good. But yeah, I think that I'm just gonna call the video here because it's, you know, we're reaching that 20-minute mark. This isn't so much, listen, I had a great time playing this and seeing the fruits of my labor, you know, seeing them grow. They're not ripe yet, but they're looking promising. And I could talk a lot about all that stuff, but I would rather just give it nice and short, or as short as it can be, and go from there. And I'll be also putting that supplementary stuff on the Knockout thread. You know, I'll keep the Dev Diaries coming, because now I'm actually able to start discussing pieces of this as I go along. Now that we all understand the high level play here of having that good time playing. I think we played for like an hour. You know, we can actually start focusing on, well, how do we make this better? What places need to be improved? Because we're really close to just being able to play through the whole game. There are still maybe 3 crucial fixes, things that actually stop the game from working. That map change is number 1. There's cutscene issues, but not the ones you're thinking of. Cutscenes more like, because the game likes to play like, I think, MP4 files or something like that at certain points, instead of having in-game cutscenes. It would be nice to have a mapper go in and recreate those cutscenes in-game so that everyone can enjoy it Half-Life 2 style. But that's, you know, we're talking about down the line. And also, there was some good discussion in the Discord about a couple of interesting features that I was thinking about on a personal level. There was the idea of map ads, you know, being able to edit your own map from just in the game or some vectors and such. I believe this was brought up by Balaam in the Discord. I have no idea if that's pronounced right, but we'll go with that. And, you know, I invite that sort of discussion where people will go in and ask me stuff like that. You know, I had another guy come in, I believe it was something like Pirate Fury or something like that, and we were able to have a nice discussion about, you know, answers, questions, and things like that. So I really want to first and foremost dive in and say, yes, please, I'm here to talk about this. I'm here to answer your questions. Just talk to me. If you have any ideas, just say them. I always say this community, this project's built for the community. This community is what's making this project even possible in the first place, with all the support, and I can go on, right? So just don't be scared. That's all I can really say. I can say I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you watching the video, getting this far. You know, it's just 20 minutes of babbling. But don't be scared to come in, because this is how you create something that is good for everybody. You communicate with the people that are gonna play it. What am I gonna do, right? Exactly. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for being there. I hope everybody enjoyed the anniversary videos and just the releases. I know a couple of them went to the front page, which is nice. But that's not what they're there for. They're there for them to be enjoyed, and also to sort of do a little bit of weird stuff that I want to do but never really have the opening to do it. So I hope that I can at least, you know, entertain as a content creator in that way. Either that or I'm gonna have to start up a Fortnite stream or something. Hopefully not. But okay, thank you, everybody. You know, make sure you like, subscribe. I post on the Twitter. You know, come to the Discord. Check out Knockout, ModDB. You got it all. You know, just let me know. I got the polls coming. Vote for your favorite stuff. Let me know if this video is closer to the stuff that you liked in the previous Dev Diaries, or if things need to be improved. Did I listen to your feedback? There's just so much things. If I didn't answer any questions, ask them. I could go on. I said that maybe 4 times, so I think it's time to stop the video. Thank you, and, you know, have a good whatever time of day it is. Try not to mention daylight savings time. I wasn't supposed to read that part out loud, but, well, There you go. You get that. You earned it. Congratulations.